The rising tensions with North Korea have put a new spotlight on Asia. One big issue is how China's growing ambition and military power could impact U.S. influence in the region. East Asia expert Richard McGregor explores the complex dynamics in a new book. It is called Asia's Reckoning.
The award-winning author and former Financial Times Beijing bureau chief says the region's complicated history sheds light on many of today's diplomatic challenges. McGregor writes, as its power has grown, China has begun building a new regional order with Beijing at the center in place of Washington. The battle lines are clear. Richard, good morning.
Good morning.
You suggest that in the region, Beijing says the United States is there by choice. It chooses to be there, while China is there by geographical reality, meaning that's how they see their role as superior to the U.S. role.
Well, they're a geopolitical fact in Asia. The U.S., as you say, is there by choice. And I think China wants to make the cost for the U.S. to be there go up and up, slowly, not rapidly. They don't want the U.S. to leave quickly. But over time, China naturally wants to dominate Asia. It wants to be the hegemonic power, if you like, and ultimately replace the U.S., but not in a way that we might sort of see happening at the moment with the destabilization. Which
begs the question, is there anything the United States can do to stop that?
Well, I think over time the US would have to share power. I mean, not with, if the Chinese economy collapsed or something like that, if there was a terrible internal upheaval inside China, that would change the equation. But over time, there's not much the US can do to maintain the role it's had for the past 70 years.
One of the main factors here, if not the main factor, is the relationship between China and Japan, which the trade thrives between the two countries, economically speaking, but politically it's been tense for years, since World War II or before that. How does the relationship between China and Japan play into the future, and how does it affect the U.S.?
Well, in the big picture, if you think about it, East Asia's had fantastic economic growth in the last 70 years. It's been an economic success. It's been a political failure. The Korean Civil War has never been solved. The Chinese Civil War has never been solved. China and Japan have worse relations now than they've had for decades. And if China and Japan have conflict, that automatically means that the US is in there as well, because the US is Japan's treaty ally. It's sworn to defend it. And if they come to blows, that's the entire global economy goes through these three countries. And that's a big deal.
You call it the geopolitical version of Reservoir Dogs, which I think is a very interesting visual. All pointing guns at each other and all blaming each other.
Yeah, I mean, they've all, in different ways, dependent on each other, threatening each other. That sounds odd to talk about.
Betrayed by each other.
And trade with each other. They're all interdependent in a highly sort of valuable way in many respects, but also increasingly volatile fashion.
Speaking of an issue we've been talking about this morning and recently, which is North Korea and China's influence, are there circumstances in which China might say to North Korea, you've got to stop this, and we are part of the U.S. effort to get you to stop it?
Well, the problem is they've kind of been saying that for a long time, and North Korea's...
But not doing it.
No, they haven't done it. The problem with China is China has enormous economic leverage over North Korea, but it's the kind of leverage, if they used, could come back against them. You know, if North Korea collapsed, if North Korea fell into the arms of South Korea, then China would have a US ally on its border. And China's made the choice so far, no matter how crazy North Korea has got, keeping them there is better than having them in, as part of a US ally.
There's some people in the Trump administration who believe that we ought to declare, and these are nationalists, economic war against China because of the economic war that they have declared against us in terms of what they do with respect to tech companies and other people to participate in the Chinese economy.
Well, the US should take on China on a number of fronts, particularly on the issue of technology and technology transfer. But the idea of economic war is something altogether beyond that. And, if I think there's a lot to say for Mr. Trump putting China a little bit off balance, as he did at the start of his administration. But if Mr. Trump is putting his own White House off balance, is putting the US off balance at the same time, he can't do much with China. With China, you need a long-term, 3-4 decade-long strategy to sort of push back against their own economic nationalism, and that's what the US does not have at the moment.
They do practice economic nationalism.
Absolutely.
Well, he appeared to cultivate a relationship in the beginning when he invited President Xi Jinping to visit him in Mar-a-Lago, and then it seemed to have taken a turn.
Well, he's taken many turns.
Yeah.
He's taken many turns on North Korea. He's taken many turns on China. He said Xi Jinping was a terrific guy. Well, he may be a terrific guy for his family, but that's not quite the point, really.
Okay, so we've got this Congress coming up. I mean, how crucial is it, and what will it decide for China?
Well, this will see Xi Jinping, barring any major shock, consolidate his power, perhaps consolidate it for another not just 5 years, 10 years. And it will, I guess, embolden him further internationally. Once he's in complete charge of the Politburo and the Politburo Standing Committee. So, in other words, it could see China settle down a little bit.
Jinping, the most consequential Chinese leader since?
Well, Deng Xiaoping, without a doubt.
Richard McGregor, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.